This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And welcome to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and it is it's a rainy, non-victory Monday here in Pittsburgh, and
yeah, we were festive before we hit record, though. We were having a good time. It can always make something good out of a bad situation.
Here's the thing: like, you and I both picked the Eagles to win that game. Neither one of us expected the Steelers to go out there and win. I just wanted to see how they matched up against that Philadelphia team. And I got to say, I know the score was 27-13, and the Eagles did what they did at the end of the game. Mm-hmm. But I got through that game. In the first half, I'm watching. Steelers went 3 and out in their first 5 possessions.
Yeah, that's a rough start.
Rough start. The Eagles were scoring some points. And then you look up at halftime, and it's 17-13. And I'm like...
Like, at that point, I bet the Eagles were like, what are we doing here?
How did this happen?
Why was this a game going into the half? Why didn't we bury them then?
And even at that, the Eagles then come out and they score a field goal in the opening kickoff of the second half. So it's 20-13. And the Steelers come right out and hit the flea flicker, and they're driving. Back-to-back runs by Jalen Warren. They pick up another first down. They're at the inside, almost getting ready to go into the red zone, and they get the pitch play and the fumble. And that just kind of seemed to change the tenor of the game a little bit. I thought the Steelers had weathered the storm early in that game, which is often the case in a game like that. In their building, you got to kind of, roll with the punches a little bit. Right. I thought they had done that and had changed the momentum a little bit and had kind of turned it back their own way, and the turnover killed them.
Yeah. I think they'd lose that game 9 out of 10 times.
Well,
and you didn't say any differently.
No, they've lost out there 11 times in a row. They haven't won there since 1965. I did not expect them to win the game. Right. What I didn't want to see was them get – and I know the final numbers look like they were badly outplayed, and to a degree they were, but you were down at – once Dante Jackson left the game, you're down 2 starters in the secondary. No George Pickens, which changes the entire way of how they defend you.
I mean, that's coming in. You knew that was going to be a problem.
And, you're missing a starting defensive lineman, and you stopped the run.
Clearly, that was goal number 1.
That was goal number 1. They weren't going to let Saquon beat them, and that didn't happen.
And we said that all last week. If Hurts, nickels, and dimes and completes passes on, that's what they're hurting to do, tip your hat to him. And he did. I thought he played really well.
But who is the best tackler on this defense? To me, it's Deshaun.
I was going to say Elliott.
It's Deshaun Elliott.
Elliott and Minka, I would say, are the 2 best, yeah.
And so by what they did was they put Minka up closer to the line of scrimmage in this game. He was basically took Elliott's role.
Yeah.
And, so you
in a way, you got weaker 2 spots.
Right.
In terms of, size and, all that in the box ability.
But this was not, I was out there a couple of years ago when they lost that game 38-13. This was not that.
Okay. So I thought they were clearly the inferior team, and I was just thinking about it before we hit record, too. I'm like, even going into this game, if I had to draft out of the other 31 teams, who do I least want to play in the league? This is probably my last pick, I mean, especially now with Detroit has a couple injuries, and I'm even talking about the healthy Mahomes. I'm like, this is not a great matchup for the Steelers. They have tackles that can deal with your edges. Their receivers are a real problem. Barkley, this is a really, really good football team. But I definitely think there is some credence to you caused 2 turnovers really early with good field position and great field position. That can't be 3 points. That can't be 3 points.
And the one, they're going in for a score after they get the second turnover at the 11 on the fumbled punt.
Yeah.
They're going in first. They get a 7-yard gain on first down. And Darnell Washington takes Darius Slay and drives him through the end zone.
Yeah, into the 5th row. Yeah.
Now, people are I get it. You have to realize, you can't see the play behind you, so you don't know exactly where you're at. But you can see the stands coming up. You know that once the stands are there, you're not on the field of play anymore.
I think that's trying to put a statement for the rest of the game.
And I get it. And he can't do that.
No.
Slay threw a punch. I'm looking right at it. It's right down below us. Basically the press box is in that end zone. I could see the punch go. Then everybody comes and crowds around. I see another punch come. I think it was the other cornerback, the rookie, Quinion Mitchell, threw it at Calvin Austin. And they meet about it. They have a discussion, and they decide none of the Eagles did anything wrong. 2 penalties on the Steelers. Move the ball back to the 19, and you get 3.
Momentum's gone, right?
You get 3.
That's offsetting 9 out of 10 times, and even the
99 out of 100 times it's offsetting.
And that's the right call too. There's no doubt about that. Now, where I was going with this is, you weren't playing well early. You know, I mean, your offense was struggling.
But that gave you a little bit of a.
But as we've seen with this offense too, even when they don't have their best guys, they do figure things out as the game goes on. You know, if you want to be critical of the coaching staff of you don't come in with a good enough plan, okay. But I think it's a glass half full, glass half empty thing. That as the game goes on offensively, they get better. You know, and they were starting to figure some things out.
They just didn't get any plays in the second half.
Well, that's.
They ran 11 plays in the second half.
Second half was crazy.
Because they couldn't, it just.
And the Najee fumble was as untimely as you could ask for, and he's the most sure-handed guy in the league and on your team. I mean, that's as fluky a play as there's going to be, but it was a mistake by your most sure-handed guy at the worst time. Again, I don't think they win that game a high percentage of the time, no matter what, as currently constructed. No Pickens, missing those guys on defense. But if the game goes different early, I don't think it's a rout in the end.
No.
You know what I mean?
No, I'm with you. And I know that, they had it was a 21-play drive that ate the last 10 minutes. Basically, once they got across midfield, I thought, at that point,
the game's over.
They had run 20 more offensive plays than the Steelers at that point. It ended up being almost 30.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it was just clock killing.
Yeah, your offense did nothing early to keep your defense off the field.
Right.
And, eventually
too much defense is bad defense.
Yeah.
It's always going to be the case.
They ran 71 plays, and the Steelers, it was.
Time of possession was basically equal.
It was 77-41.
Yeah, right.
Like they ran 26 more plays than you did. No. Mm-hmm. 36 more plays than you did.
Which is
36.
Rare.
That's like almost a game's worth.
Almost a game's worth. So, and that's often what the Steelers do to their opponents.
Yeah.
But the Eagles do it better than anybody. I mean, usually it's because they run the ball so well. In this case, they didn't run the ball so well and still could bleed you out, late.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how they're built, and they're really good at it, and they're a really good football team. And I thought Hurts played the best he has in months.
But I look at those, those stats from the first half, to your point.
Mm-hmm.
At the half, the Eagles had 176 total yards. They were 1 for 9 on third downs.
Yeah.
1 for 9. They ended up 10 for 17.
Mm-hmm.
You played too much defense. Late into the game.
And tackling was a problem, which also becomes a problem when you're fatigued.
You start to get fatigued, yeah.
But I was a little shocked with, a 6-yard pass on third. I'm just making stuff up. 6-yard pass on 3rd and 15. Steelers miss an open field tackle and they get 16. It just had that feeling to it a lot, which happens when you're on the field too much. But tackling has to be better. Blocking needs to be better. Again, I thought they were the inferior team against what I now think is the best team in the league and the worst matchup for this team in the league. But the world also isn't falling. And, we do the pregame show with Tim Benz. You were on the hour after me for away games. And we do a globally speaking, comment, and that's how we open the show at 9:00. And Tim's, Matt, what's your globally speaking? And mine is, beat the Ravens. He said, well, it's Eagles week. I'm like, no, all that matters is beating the Ravens. I'm not punting on this game.
Yeah.
But globally speaking, beat the Ravens.
If you beat the Ravens this week, you win the division.
That's the goal here, is to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And the path to do that is winning the division. Losing in Philly isn't the most important thing in the year. I mean, you have to think globally. That's why we do this segment, globally speaking. It's Tomlinism or whatever. Beat the Ravens.
And if you beat the Ravens this week, nobody's going to think anything Well, yeah, that was just a bad game out in Philadelphia.
It'll come up again if you meet them in the Super Bowl.
Right. That's the only time it would come up.
Right.
If you beat let's say you win the next two. Let's say you beat the Ravens and then beat the Chiefs.
Oh, then it'll be
everybody's like, well,
fourth in the power rankings.
Yeah, these guys are actually the Steelers are back.
Yeah.
Like there were people asking questions to Tomlin after and players in the locker room after the game. How do you keep this from snowballing?
I think he said you beat
the
Ravens.
Right.
100%.
That's how you keep it from snowballing.
It's a short week. It's kind of the opposite of the loss in Cleveland. That was a long week to stew on it, but now it's like, get me back on the field. Against my rivals that I know. I don't need the extra day to prepare for Lamar. I know who he is. I want to get out there now. You think Cam Hayward's happy with that performance yesterday? Of course not. Not him in particular.
Yeah.
He whipped the crap out of Tyler Steen, by the way, when he came in there. But
by the way, that game, the Eagles had 3 offensive linemen go out of that game with injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were getting beat up a little bit up front too.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
it wasn't like
they were feeling it today.
They weren't real happy to see the Steelers, or they were probably much happier to see the Steelers leave than they like.
Yeah,
Lane Johnson left, Dickerson left, the center. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if Barkley was injured or not in the second quarter, but he sat a long stretch. And they asked Sirianni about it. He's like, well, it was just third down defense. And if I'd have been a reporter, I'd have been like, so you willingly kept him off the field for the whole second quarter? I'm like, that's not smart.
They do that, though. I mean, he had 7 carries for 31 yards in the first half. I mean, that's.
And Gainwell was good.
Yeah, and Gainwell was good on. He had some big third down catches. All 3 of his catches went for first downs.
Yeah.
On third downs. But that's just how they've operated. Also, trust me, I own Barkley in fantasy.
Right.
Like,
well, he's not going to play 100% of the snaps.
Yeah,
right,
it's a little frustrating at times when like, why aren't you running the best runner in the country? But that's kind of what they do. And if you're going to throw the ball, which obviously they were intent on doing,
right.
Well, then you're not going to hand it to that guy as much. So, at the end of it, they attempted. Well, they dropped back to pass 16 times in the first half, which is outside the norm for them.
Yeah. Their game plan was to come out throwing.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's because A.J. Brown was a squeaky wheel, but I think Brown and Smith they might have been the best 2 players on the field. I thought they were great in this game. And Jackson got hurt, but I don't think that's the reason they lost. Harris fumbled. I don't think that's the reason they lost. There were 2 penalty calls, the one you mentioned with Darnell Washington taking him into the second row, that were bad. And the other one I thought was the
Jalen Carter punch at the line of scrimmage.
Well, that one too, but I would say that the change of possession on the punt.
Yeah, that was a Jalen.
That was a Jalen Carter. I was
trying
my wires were getting crossed out.
Punched Connor Hayward in the side of the head.
Yeah.
At the snap. And they said that was post.
Which it wasn't even close.
No,
I mean it was.
If you see the video of it, and there's videos of it out on social media, you see him come up, punch Connor Hayward in the side of the head, and you can see the ball leaving the punter's foot after the fact.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking?
I mean, if you did review that and decided it was after the fact, I'm not sure what you're looking at.
Yeah.
But so there was a lot of that stuff.
The Steelers actually had the offense on the field while they were discussing that.
Yeah. Oh, the announcer's like, oh, this is coming back.
Yeah. They were out on the offense was out there getting ready to, and at that point, that was before the 10-minute drive.
Mm-hmm.
So it was 4th and 7 there. You're going to get the first down.
Yeah.
You're down 27-13 at that point. If you punch that one in, again, it's 27-20 now.
Yeah. It's kind of like the Washington one, too. Like, now you're in field goal range and you're in 3rd and long, Now, Washington shouldn't have done what he did and all that stuff, too. But
Connor Hayward didn't do anything but
stand
there and get hit in the head.
So there were definitely big plays in that regard. People want to blame Tomlin for the 4th and 7. Like, all those things, I still think the Steelers lose. On that day, in that building, with the players on the field, the coaches coaching. But it could have gone differently, too.
Yeah.
We
just don't know. You just don't know how the game plays out.
I'd be shocked
if those things don't happen.
I mean, I said it a couple times. I still think the Steelers lose that game 9 out of 10 times, but I still think the second half doesn't go that way more than 5% of the time. You know what I mean? Where it's just running down, just eating clock to an extreme degree. I think it'd be a much more competitive 4th quarter.
Yeah, I agree. But, it didn't work out that way.
Right.
There's
bigger fish to fry, though.
In every game, there are maybe 5 tops play in the NFL 5 plays that changed the outcome of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And those 3 go against the Steelers.
Yeah.
The Eagles, they had them 3rd and goal at the 2. They had stopped them a couple of times on 1st and 2nd down. The first, I believe, first down play, there was a high snap that Hurts gets tackled for no loss, and they run the ball and don't get anything. So it's 3rd and goal, and he throws a little pass to Devontae Smith there.
Mm-hmm.
You stopped the tush push once.
Yeah. No, it's a hard thing to stop.
It's a hard thing to stop. I there were some good things that I saw in that game that if a couple of those plays go your way, I don't know if it, again, to your point, I don't know if it affects the overall outcome, but it makes it a much closer game.
Yeah. I had a real similar conversation with Wolf and Rob King, who we're going to have on, and I compared it to the Colts game. Like, the Colts game on Monday was, 8 out of 9 plays that could have gone either way went against you. This one, more often than didn't, and I think they would have won the Colts game going away if it's just even Steven. You know what I mean? This one, I don't think they win either way, but maybe the second half is drastically different. You know what I mean?
What we don't know, so T.J. Watt forces the fumble on a tackle, gets 2 sacks at the end of the half. If that's a closer game, does he get more opportunities to do that?
I was thinking that too. Like, now he's starting to get a better beat on Lane. These 2 Hall of Famers are doing battle, and maybe the first couple rounds went to Ali, and now Frazier's starting to land a few, and then maybe Ali gets around, and who
How
knows?
about Pro Football Focus credited Lane Johnson with
saw that.
allowing no pressures in that game?
I was like, that's insane.
I
think he'd be the first to tell you that was a
that
tough
was
game,
not the case.
Right. I read that, and I was like, for another podcast I do, sometimes I'll just cut and paste things I read, and I'm discuss them on when I'm on by myself. I'm like, I'm not even going to bring that up. Like,
he had his hands full the entire game.
Wrong. Yeah. He's really, really good. And
Yeah.
most guys would have got destroyed in that situation, but there's no way that was just like, he just won that battle. Even all day long.
Because if the 2 Philadelphia receivers weren't the best players on the field yesterday,
Yeah.
it might have been Watt.
It might have been Watt, right?
Like, he was changing the game with how he was playing.
Yep. And of course he got injured, which didn't help matters either.
No.
But
real quick, Mike Tomlin held his press conference today. He said that he saw T.J. Watt this morning in the building, walking around fine. So it looks like he's figuring on him playing.
Very scary watching it live.
Oh yeah,
deflating.
Dante Jackson, who else? Larry Ogunjobi, Deshaun Elliott, George Pickens. And Justin Fields got banged up in that game yesterday. He said everybody is on pace for the opportunity to play this week.
Okay, so he didn't phrase it like, "Oh, we're hoping or holding the game."
There was no hope. It was like, I feel pretty really confident about Watt playing. Was basically his words. And the other guys, he said, we feel pretty good about the possibility of them playing.
Great, because this is the game.
All hands on deck.
This is the game until further notice.
Yeah.
You lose this one, then you got other work to do. But big picture thinking here, you're trying to win the Super Bowl. You're not trying to win in Philadelphia is your last goal.
The only thing that does concern me about this one this week is that your defense did play 77 defensive snaps on a Sunday.
One less day, and then you get one less day after that. And I hate that they played so much.
Yeah. Now, that being said, a lot of your frontline players weren't necessarily out there late into the game. So it was more like they played 65 plays.
I haven't studied the snaps.
I haven't looked at the snap counts either, but there were a lot of they were managing Cam Hayward.
The Lowrys were out there more and more.
Well, I thought Dean Lowry played well.
No, I think he's kind of a bright spot. Yeah.
I thought he did some good things.
Like, I would elevate him over the Loudermilks and those type of guys. Right, in terms of
he gets more of a pocket push than Louder. I think
player.
Good physical player, guy, a lot of experience. But we got to get to a break. When we return, we'll be joined by Steelers play-by-play announcer Rob King. He is Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and we're joined on the Justin Miller hotline by published author Rob King. Check out the Adorna Stone wherever you can find it there. But Kinger,
Amazon. That's the
there
only
you go.
place.
Go to Amazon. Dorna Stone. Kinger.
Yes.
You had to get sick and tired of calling the Steelers' defense yesterday being on the field.
Second half.
Okay, you broke up slightly when I
Oh,
the
okay.
question. I'm sorry.
So I said you had to get a little tired of calling the Steelers' defense on the field yesterday. Did we lose Kinger? No, I'm echoing in my ears.
But enough defense.
Oh, there he is.
Defense, you know.
I didn't hear any of that.
So you had to get sick of calling the Steelers defense yesterday.
Here we go.
People are getting sick of this question.
Right.
How are you? How you guys doing?
Hey, how's things going?
Hey, how you been?
Published author Rob King.
Door in the Stone. Amazon.
Available on Amazon. Are we done yet?
So back to the game. What do you think of calling the Steelers defense?
I called it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was out there a lot. I mean, it was. I don't ever remember seeing a game quite like that from anybody's perspective. Even back in the day when the Steelers were, ground and pound and munching out drives. You don't see the Steelers on that side of things very often. They just couldn't make a play. Offensively or defensively. We talk about complementary football. They just couldn't. They couldn't find a way to either sustain a drive to give the defense a break or for the defense to get off the field to give the offense an opportunity. The more I look at the calls that were made against them, there were some bad calls against them. It was a game in which they just couldn't catch a break, really. And, again, it's not, you'd have liked to have seen them rise to the challenge, get off the field, make a play in that second half, and it just didn't happen.
Slow start. Some calls didn't go your way. You get those two turnovers deep in your own end, and when things are looking good, they don't mind that Philly's swinging and you're not, when Darnell Washington's planting guys in the front row. And these aren't excuses, but against a team like Philly in that building, it's going to snowball every time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a snowball.
We were talking earlier, and I think you made a really good analogy when you brought up the Colts game.
That is impossible.
The Colts game,
that's probably not true.
I felt it was a good analogy. There were 6 or 7 plays in that game. It's kind of a head scratcher. You walked out of that stadium, thinking, what just happened? How did that happen?
The Colts game you're talking about.
And they lost the game. Yeah, the Colts game.
Mm-hmm.
The Steelers were the better team, and they lost the game. And if any one of 6 or 7 things had gone their way, they would have won the game.
Mm-hmm.
Any one of them. Just every break seemed to go against them. Well, in this one, if breaks had gone their way, they would have been in the game. That's all we can really say.
Yeah. It might have gone a little different.
Yeah, the opponent is a more quality opponent. And that was telling. It showed, because when you didn't get the breaks, they brought their quality to bear on the Steelers. And it was tough to watch. It was tough to not be able to see the team get off the field. But you understand why they couldn't. Why couldn't they? Well, because when your offense goes 5 straight 3-and-outs, I mean, you're jogging off the field, and you're tying your shoes, and you're going to sit down and talk to your coaches, and all of a sudden they're saying, "Hey, punt team," and you're like, "Whoa, I guess we're back out there again," and that wears on a team. And so, you can't just blame the defense because the offense didn't help in the first half, and you can't just blame the offense because the defense didn't get the ball back in the second half, and then the officials didn't help you out. I'm still. And again, I've tried to explain this to people. Like I watch the game differently when I'm calling it than I do when I'm a fan. I frequently do not watch the replays because I've got other things to do. I'm preparing for the next play, and I'm at home, of course. I'm glued into every replay. I'm annoying my wife by hitting pause and saying, "Hey, look, I think they're going to roll into a cover 2, honey." And she's just like, just could we just watch the game, please? But when I'm calling the game, it's not the same way. So I didn't see the replay, and I don't know if they showed it on TV, but I've seen the video now of that, what happened in the end zone. I don't understand how you could have reviewed that.
I don't understand how the official who first came in and broke up the scrum was right there when the punch was thrown. I don't understand how he doesn't see that.
Look, could you have said Darnell Washington played past the whistle there and called them. I guess so. I mean, assuming he heard the penalty.
Well, I think that's pretty clear. I mean, he's taking them almost into the second row.
Yeah.
But it still should have been offsetting.
Yeah, right. Normally, and again, I don't know whether the game has changed, but, like that's, in any team I've ever been around, or that's applauded. Hey, great job, like, hey, listen, if you drive this guy into the stand, I'll give you $5. you know what I mean? Like that's something that's encouraged.
That's a Gronk thing,
right?
A
little past the whistle, okay. Maybe he went a little past the whistle, fine. A lot of times that stuff is, I don't know if that's necessarily called, especially if you're not like giving in the business or whatever. But at the least, at the worst, it should have been offsetting. And then, the punt, and again, those are big issues. Those are big things that happen in the course of the game. So, I mean, I think if you were looking at the game, you could clearly say, hey, the fumble by Najee Harris. And there must have been a blue moon, because that's how often Najee Harris fumbles. I'm not the least concerned about Najee Harris fumbling. But can you point to that and say that's the turning point of the game? You had an opportunity to tie it up. Yeah, you had an opportunity to get back in the game. You had an opportunity to be at the break-even point with a quarter and a half of football left. If you march down and score the touchdown, there's still no assurance you march down and score a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many things happen in that game that the Steelers, had opportunities to make tackles, to make plays, and it didn't happen. And a good team shows you what happens when you don't, when you allow them to take advantage of your mistakes. That's what happens.
Yeah, I just look at that first, as bad as that first half was offensively, and you mentioned the 5 3-and-outs to start the game. At the end of the first half, the Eagles had run 31 offensive plays, and the Steelers had run 30.
Yeah.
Right.
And it ended up 77-41.
It's bonkers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just insane. I've never seen anything like that.
No, neither have I. 46-11 plays. I mean, it's 13, 13, and 20. 3 drives in the second half. 3 long Eagles drives. And
did you get tired of calling the Steelers defense?
I'm sorry. Did you say something?
Published author.
No. I mean,
Amazon.
Go to Amazon. Door in the stump.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Is this like Groundhog Day? Listen. It's what do you do? I would have liked Dale, the analogy I used in talking to Matt earlier. I would have liked that gap to have been smaller. The gap between what happened and what might have happened, even in a loss. You don't like to see 13 and then you turn the ball over and then it's 13 again, and then you kick the ball back and then it's 20. I would have liked, even if you lost the game, I would have liked to have seen, maybe you stop them one time, you make a tackle, you come back and maybe kick a field goal, and you lose by 10, but that just felt like a kind of a wear down. And the Steelers have been on the plus end of those things, and those are really fun to be on the plus end of, and not much fun to be on the minus end of.
No. Turning the page forward, Rob.
Yeah.
Yes.
Steelers-Ravens this week.
The page of what? The page of the Door in the Stone?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the page in the Door in the Stone, illustrated by your daughter.
Page, yeah. Chapter 2.
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead. Let's get on to the Ravens. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, we're moving on to the Ravens because
good.
we have one fewer day to do all this stuff this week, so you gotta turn the page quickly. Do you expect any carryover from that game where your defense was on the field for 77 plays against the Ravens this week?
So I'm glad you asked that, and I'm glad because no, I don't expect there to be that. And Mike Tomlin after the game was asked about the loss and the carryover in the 3 games, and he's like, I think he said let's not get overly dramatic. It's a loss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought that was a great response, and I think that's the way the team's going to take it. You can't do what they did against good teams and expect to win. He always talked about the road gets narrower, the path gets narrower. The better the competition you face, the less you can get away with that kind of thing. And they couldn't get away with it. And is the defense worn down? Well, I don't know. Maybe is is it a short week? It assuredly is that. I don't see that having any effect. I like the fact that he didn't rule anybody out early in the week. Early last week, he characterized George Pickens as doubtful. He didn't characterize anybody as doubtful this week. It is a big game for the Steelers, and I don't expect there to be any hangover effect. And I understand why people would think that could be an issue, because you're playing 3 games against top quality opponents, physical opponents, and you're doing it in 11 days. And there's a reason that that's not, the normal schedule, because that's a lot to ask of these guys and a lot to ask of their bodies. However, it is the Ravens. I do think that they will bounce back. There's a reason that it's a well-conditioned team. It is because things like this are coming, and you're going to be physically prepared for that. So now you have another game like this. If this was the quick turnaround game, right? If this was Saturday's game going into Wednesday, maybe my answer would be different. I think there's enough time to recuperate, and there's enough at stake where I don't think that's going to be too big of a factor. Now, if they go on some long drives early in the first half of the game, could the defenders' legs be heavy late in the game? I think that's possible. I don't think going in I would expect it to have too much of an effect.
Yeah, maybe I'm a little more worried about it than you guys. We have mentioned that the Steeler defense was on the field a little bit in this conversation. Not to harp on that, but Amazon. It is a short week. Amazon, down.
This is like subliminal stuff here.
But I also think that
Christmas.
There's also pride, and there's also familiarity. That
great gift.
Hayward and Watt and company were embarrassed by their standards, kind of like on Thursday night in Cleveland. And that one, they had 10 days to stew on it, and Tomlin poking at them. This one, I like that they're getting back on the horse now. Everyone knows it wasn't great. Get back on the horse against your biggest rival. Great. Give me another challenge.
Right. And it wasn't like, there were some moments in which the Steelers could have made. I felt it was more like, man, the Steelers left some plays out there. And this is hard to say, Matt, after they go 13, 13, 20 in their drives. I still didn't feel like they got manhandled. I didn't feel like, oh my goodness gracious.
They're just getting gashed left and right and moved off the ball.
Yeah,
I didn't feel that
run down their throat.
Right.
I didn't feel that way. And so if it's that, that's alarming, right?
Right.
If it's, hey, you got to come up with some tackles here. We got to get a call maybe. We have to have some things that are uncharacteristic cleaned up. It's like I was saying before, like we all make mistakes in life. And, Dale, I was using this when I was talking to Matt and Wolf earlier. Look, man, so I know if I make a call and I mess something up on my job, and that, believe me, it happens, I know I made a mistake. I don't need the mistake pointed out. Now, if I make the same mistake over and over again, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
This is a game in which they made some mistakes, but they know they made mistakes. And so I don't think, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say a word to Najee. Najee Harris never fumbles, right? I don't want him thinking about that. I want him playing football. If that's the 4th pitch he dropped this year, sure, I'm going to pull him aside and say, hey, man, we got to do something different. It never happens with Najee Harris. So, I think, and I'm using that one because it's an obvious example. The missed, the open field tackles missed. Those guys are pretty good too, but still, the Steelers get guys in the ground. They're more often than not. I would just say, look, let's get back on the horse. We lost. Don't forget about it. Use it for motivation if you'd like, but let's not dwell on it.
That's the big thing. It's how do you rebound from something like this? You can go one of two ways, and just knowing the character of this team, I expect them to rebound, and I expect you to get the. You may not win the game in Baltimore.
It's gonna be a tough game. Right?
It's gonna be a tough game. You've beaten them 8 out of 9 times. Just the numbers of it all show that when you play somebody a 10th time, and they're both good football teams, that's just the way it goes. But I do expect a better game. I don't expect to see that kind of thing happen again. I don't expect the Ravens to go out there and Lamar throws 5 touchdown passes and they're all, got hats on early in the third quarter celebrating, beating the Steelers. That's not going to happen.
Right. I don't think it's going to happen. And again, if you told me, if you just told me about those 3 drives in the second half, right? If you just said, hey, that's the way the game went, I'd have been like, whoa, man, were they just outclassed in that game?
Mm-hmm.
But I go back to I didn't feel like they were outclassed. Did they lose? Yeah, they lost. Did they do, did they do some things that were uncharacteristic in that loss? Yes. Did Philadelphia have something to do with it? Well, sure, they're good players, man. I mean, look, we talk all the time, hey, throw it short and run long, right? Like you expect George Pickens to break a tackle and make a play. You expect Najee Harris, if he has a full head of steam going, and he's running down the sideline and he's hit a yard before the sticks, and he's going to pick up the first down. Well, if it's true for the Steelers players, it's true for those guys. I mean, A.J. Brown's a 3-time Pro Bowler. DeMonte Smith is a first-round pick. Saquon Barkley, has already set the Eagles' single-season rushing record. Jalen Hurts, these guys are going to make their plays.
Lane Johnson's going to the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. Like this is a good football team. Yeah. That's
right. And I don't feel like, again, if you told me that was the trend, that's what happened, I would have been like, ooh, wow. But I don't feel that way. I don't feel that that's what happened in that game. And so now, if you see a similar outcome against Baltimore, and then you see a similar outcome against Kansas City, and then you see a similar outcome against Cincinnati, well, then now you've got a trend. One game is not a trend.
Absolutely.
Rob, last thing I got for you real quick. Sorry. Not to bring the mood down, but a concern I have is we know this team's going to run the ball a lot. I mean, that's their identity. It's that head coach, the offense coordinator, the quarterback at this stage of his career. But 3-9 or 4-0 for the season is a lot different than 4-3 or 4-4 a pop. I think they have to get this running game one notch better. And then all of a sudden it's 2nd and 5, not 2nd and 7. It would have such a ripple effect. And it's been a issue / problem for the majority of the year.
Yeah, it's they have been able to, and I don't know where they rank, Matt, and you would know this more than I, on negative plays and rushes of less than 2 or 3 yards.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I thought in this game was in those first drives, you're getting 0 yards, 1 yard, 1 yard, 0 yards. I think they got like 6 or something, but that was after a penalty. 0 yard, 1 yard. So you're looking at 3rd and 8, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 18. And
mm-hmm.
I don't feel like that's been the case. I mean, yes, I understand what you're saying, but I feel like they've at least been able to get into 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 3, which is a lot different than 3rd and 8. That's a little more. That's frankly a little anecdotal for me. I don't know the exact numbers. I do know what you're saying as far as running the ball. Now, I'll also say this, and this one is hard to quantify. The Steelers have been a much better second half team than a first half team.
Yep.
So, is the fact that you're running the ball a lot early part of the reason that you're more successful late in the game?
Landed some body blows, right?
Right, yeah. When I look at what happened with the Steelers, I think that part of the problem with the defense was you went 3 and outs. Well, I think part of the problem for defense can be when a team is wearing at you and running at you, and now suddenly it opens things up. Now, are they the Eagles? And I think this is a great conversation. We could have spent the whole show talking about this. But, I think the Eagles came out, and I think the Steelers expected them to run. They've been more of a second half running team. But they came out and threw the ball more. They ran the ball with some effectiveness in the second half. They didn't follow their usual script. It didn't seem to me. So is that something that perhaps the Steelers have to think about doing? I don't know. Or do you just say, look, it's been effective? I mean, just look at the proof. Okay, 3.9 yards per carry. Okay, we're going to live with that because we're going to run it a lot and we're going to dominate you in the second half. So I think it's a great question, Matt. And I don't know the answer to it. And I'm not sure. I think that's a hard question.
It might be more of an off-season thing. Right.
Yeah. And even so, I think you have to really parse some numbers to figure out. And I understand what you're saying. Like, yes, you would, if you're running the ball, the second most times, but you're 8th in yards because you're what were they, 29th or something like that in yards per carry.
Yeah.
Certainly down the list. That's not the formula you want. Clearly, you'd like to be more effective with it. Has that been a factor in their second half scoring? That might be one of those things that you can parse up all the numbers you want, and maybe it just comes down to opinion, right? I think maybe it does. So somebody else might say, well, if you're more effective, it wouldn't. So it's a great question. I mean, we could spend hours talking about just that question you brought up, man. I think it's a great question.
Kinger, we got to let you go. We appreciate you dropping by here, and we'll see you later this week when we do the matchup show. Check that out on the Steelers YouTube channel and on Steelers.com, and you can also check out The Door in the Stone, Amazon, Christmas, all that good stuff.
All that good stuff.
Thank you, Dale.
You're very welcome, Rob.
Thank you very much.
That is Rob King,
soon.
voice of the Steelers. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And, Matt, we kind of buried the lead on everything from yesterday.
Oh.
Steelers are in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's not so bad.
They clinched a playoff spot because, as expected, the Dolphins and the Colts both lost on the road. So they are now
games,
both
yeah.
6-8, and the Steelers are now at 10-4. And
You're in.
you're in.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, all this upcoming stuff is wonderful. Ravens week, Christmas with the Chiefs, end with the Bengals. The whole key is getting in the dance, and you're in.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
You don't have to wait for any help in week 18.
Right.
You're in.
I mean, how many years in recent memory has it been certainly this early, let alone, man, you need Jacksonville not to tie and this guy to win.
Looking at
and,
tiebreakers and all that stuff. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
You're in. And I firmly believe the Ravens and Steelers will be the 3 and 5 seeds in some way, shape, or form, and the Steelers have the edge up of being the 3 as it stands today. Yeah.
And even if they would happen to lose this game to Baltimore, they still win the division if they then beat Kansas City and Cincinnati.
Yep. I mean, you control your own fate.
You control your own fate. And so that's all you can ask for at this time of year.
Right. Now, I hope next Monday we're not sitting here going, man, that was a rough loss in Baltimore. But if so, you can still win the next 2.
Yeah. At home.
And then you're hosting a playoff game, wild card weekend, against Chargers, Denver, somebody like that.
Yeah.
I like your chances.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
You put a lot of money in the bank.
Yes, and that's and you've beaten the Broncos, you've beaten the Chargers, you've beaten the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
This is not.
Those are all winnable games, right?
Yeah.
Or if you end up the 5 seed and you go to Houston, okay, I would probably pick the Steelers right now.
Yeah.
So you're still in very good shape.
Yeah,
you got to globally think this thing a little bit.
Absolutely, and if you do happen to beat the Chiefs, and I know it's here, and a rematch would likely be out there.
Who knows if Mahomes plays? I don't know what's going on with him right now. I mean, there's a lot of
high ankle sprain. Who knows what happens there?
There's a lot of volatility in the league right now.
Yeah,
what's going on with Detroit, Kansas City, right?
And that's the big thing that you came out of that game yesterday with no major injuries.
So it sure sounds like you're going to be healthier for next game than you were for this game.
Yeah.
You'll take that, Christmas time-ish.
Because a lot of times when you get it, it's not always the best team that wins the Super Bowl, the best team that gets to the Super Bowl. It's about who stayed the most healthy, who got hot at the right time. Now you could look at Buffalo right now and say, well, Buffalo's red hot.
They are,
but 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Detroit was that team.
I was going to say I kind of feel bad for the Lions.
Yeah.
They're doing everything right.
They just started to stack, and at some point it just becomes too much.
Yep, and then you lose Montgomery. Even I didn't study Bills Lions, but I mean I'll dig into it more throughout the week. But the path to beating the Bills was keep him in nickel, get your big back rolling, and then he gets hurt early in the game, and then your defense loses 2 more guys when it was already on thin ice. That's happened to so many teams in this league where the attrition of the league starts to beat you up.
The Steelers,
no doubt.
People want to talk about Mike Tomlin's only won 3 playoff games since.
There's times you go limping into the playoffs.
Look at who they didn't have for most of those playoff games. AB's out for this game. Le'Veon Bell's out for that game. Ben Roethlisberger can't even raise his arm up, and
Right.
These are actual things that happen. Cam Hayward was out, when they went
like
to
not having
Watt,
or right. I mean, these are all-time great players.
legitimate things that happened, and that's just an excuse. Well, at some point, you can't afford not to have your best players on the field in the postseason. That's
100%. just critical big games. Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs. Postseason. None of these are going to be pushovers in either direction for any of these teams. And if you're a little short, it's going to be awful tough.
Right.
So at least you have that going for you as you enter this Ravens game.
That's why, to me,
very week to week.
The people talking about resting people for this game because, you just play and you'll play for the last two games. No. You play to win this game, then you can rest people.
Right.
And you also want to give yourself the most paths to get to where you want to go.
Oh, yeah. This is the most important game.
So if you win this one, the last two don't really mean anything other than seeding.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant the last two that just happened.
No.
The one that just happened doesn't mean much.
Of all your games, of your four remaining games, that was the one that meant the least.
The one that meant the least. And I'm not implying that I am implying that
you're not implying it. You're just saying it.
If that was the Super Bowl, maybe Pickens plays. Maybe Elliott plays. Ogunjobi. I mean, all of a sudden, we're not super worried about him, but 48 hours ago we were.
Yeah.
That's smart to me, though. That's not punting the game in Philly away. It's like our goal is one thing, is to win the Super Bowl. What's the choose-your-own-adventure path that makes that the least resistance? Beating the Ravens.
Beating the Ravens.
Yeah.
A team that you've beaten 8 of the last 9 times that you've played them.
Mm-hmm. And like the back of your hand, and you've one less day to prepare, but I don't need that much time to prepare for them,
You've been Lamar Jackson's kryptonite his entire career.
Yep. I need health is what I need, to give me the best chance to win that game so I can host playoff games.
Like, you think Harbaugh's, not driving? Hey, Lamar, what's going on with the Steeler thing? He gets asked about it every time they play the Steelers.
That being said, I mean, it's super early in the week to start talking Ravens, but they're in a good shape, too. I mean, having a really late bye is a wonderful thing for them. And then
a bye.
You get a preseason game.
That's one area, if you look at the league kind of all 4 of these teams that have to play Saturday and then play on Christmas Day, they're all in the same boat with that.
They are. I mean, they're all 3-11.
But if you look at
the Ravens had a bye.
Ravens had a bye.
So did Houston.
Yeah, and so did Houston. And the Ravens then got to go to play a Giants team that's not real interested in winning at this point.
No, they're not.
Houston was at home. Now, Kansas City was on the road at Cleveland. They didn't know that Cleveland was going to be as bad as Cleveland is.
Sure.
But
no, the Ravens had the easiest
The Ravens had the easiest.
Walking into this.
Yeah.
And whether the schedule makers tried to or not, that's just the facts. I mean, where the Giants are at now is a preseason game.
Yeah.
But no, so if we were doing Ravens radio right now,
well, we're in good shape.
They are in good
Everybody
shape.
had the hat on. It was like a preseason game for them.
Yeah, exactly. So they're not too beat up.
No,
and they're hosting the Steelers.
But it hasn't mattered over the years because when these two teams get together,
it's going to be a close game.
It's going to be a close game.
Yep, it is.
Absolutely. So we're going to get to another break. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of the drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with hour number 2 right after this. And welcome back to the drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And, it's time for the Fantasy Football Focus here as we kick off hour number 2. And, our DFS lineup, once again, looking like it's going to be in the money. Right now we have 119.06 points. That puts us firmly in. And we still have Bijan Robinson going tonight against the Raiders.
There are 4 teams playing tonight, but we got the best guy you want to play, I think, tonight.
I think so.
Yeah, Jefferson would be nice. A couple of Vikings.
That being said,
there were some pitfalls. I'm a little shocked that
we had some really good hits, and we had 2 zeros in our lineup.
Yeah, that's brutal.
One of which was your pick, by the way.
It was.
Amari Cooper.
Yeah. 0.
In a game in which there were 90 points scored.
Yeah.
Took a 0.
And he didn't get hurt. It wasn't Waddle getting hurt in the first quarter and getting a 0. He
just took a 0.
Coleman came back. Kincaid came back. And everybody flourished but him.
Unbelievable.
I was shocked. Yeah, I was shocked.
So we paid $5,300 for him. And he was owned in 12.3% of the lineup, so it wasn't like we were the only ones that used him.
Yeah,
he took a 0. We also took a 0 on the Browns defense, 23.7% ownership. Now, they were really cheap, but they took, at least it was just a 0, and they didn't cost us points.
Well, you lose the turnover differential by 6.
6.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're lucky that that's only a 0.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure that their defense played bad or the Chiefs played good.
They held them to 21 points despite losing the turnover battle 6-0.
6-0. So
Like, that's not bad.
It wasn't too shabby, right?
And, oh, by the way, Myles Garrett basically got his eye gouged out.
Yeah, bad. Real bad. I don't know. I mean, that's a different story, but I don't know who Defensive Player of the Year is at the moment. I mean, I guess Watt helped his case.
He certainly didn't hurt his case.
And when he got hurt, I was thinking that. I'm like, oh, no, if he misses a stretch, who's going to win this thing? But if he's back, I mean, maybe he can just run away with it at the end.
He's
of
up
the
to
year.
11.5 sacks now, which is third in the league. He's 1 sack behind Hendrickson. He's
Nobody's
now got
on like that 20-sack
No.
pace or historic numbers.
So he's now got more sacks than Garrett. He also got his 6th forced fumble yesterday, which leads the league by a margin.
I'd say pretty much, yeah.
And he also now has, I believe, 19 tackles for a loss. And remember, sacks don't count as a tackle for a loss. So therefore,
I know.
he has 30.5 tackles behind the line of scrimmage.
Line of scrimmage, whether it's a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, whatever.
Yeah, that's a little impactful.
Another guy, though, is Surtain. He got hurt yesterday, too.
He got hurt, too, yeah.
He's got a little bit of a case.
I think right now it might be Watt and the safety from Green Bay. McKinley, yeah.
Xavier McKinney.
Or McKinney, yeah.
Yeah,
McKinney.
I said it wrong. He's taking the ball away. Their defense is getting better.
He's
made a lot of impact.
He has 7 interceptions. A lot of those came early, though.
They did, right. But their defense is done away at 180, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you could attribute to him.
But it's
no,
tough for a defensive back to win it.
It is. Safeties don't win it very often. Anyway, who else would we have in the
All
lineup?
right, so we had Aaron Rodgers. That was a hit.
Yep.
30.6 points. He was only owned in 7% of lineups.
That was kind of an enjoyable game. I mean, it didn't mean anything, but there was a lot going on there.
Well, and I wanted to start Amari Cooper.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did. Or not Amari Cooper, Devontae Adams, I should say. I wanted to start Devontae Adams, and he went off.
All in the second half.
I don't care when it happened.
Oh, I know.
He went nuts.
I think they went in the locker room like, hey, bud, why don't we just throw the ball to each other?
Yeah, let's play catch. It
Nothing
might be the last time we get to do it.
It might be the last time we get to do it against terrible Jag D. And
he went nuts.
They went insane, yeah.
Yeah, he went nuts. But that's all right because we're in the money. We got Bijan going tonight. We had Jahmyr Gibbs. 6.1% ownership on Jahmyr Gibbs in that game, which is really, I'm surprised it was that low at 7,500.
Montgomery getting hurt helped.
Yeah. 28.4 points out of Jahmyr Gibbs.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Cortland Sutton, kind of a slow day for him, but he did score.
He's pretty consistent, though.
He had 12.2 points. He was owned at 20.2% of lineups at 6,600. So kind of chalky, but we're okay there.
Didn't hurt you, didn't kill you, it didn't help you a ton, yeah.
Garrett Wilson owned in 7.9% of lineups at 6,500. He got 14.6 for us. Again, wasn't great, but didn't kill us.
He was more the first half guy.
Stone Smart.
Yeah. Aren't we smart with 2 T's?
Well, so we in 36.8% of the people in. I mean, that's
There's a bunch of smart people with 2 T's.
You have to that's just stealing. If they're going to give him to you for 2,600,
yeah,
you take him for 2,600, and he had 9 points.
They can't run the ball at all.
No.
I mean, I bet Harbaugh's losing his mind right now.
All those picks you spent on offensive linemen and
we're going to run the ball and we're physical and they can't run the ball.
You might want to actually have a good running back.
Yeah, and even the interior of their line has been not great.
Yeah, getting pushed around a little bit.
Chargers aren't in a great spot. I say that more for Steeler playoff reasons. But also, fantasy notes.
And Herbert wasn't great yesterday either.
No.
We had Jerry Jeudy in the lineup at 6,200 as the flex play, 24.8 points.
I don't know what to think of that team. Again, they were 6-0 in turnover ratio. Winston gets benched. Njoku was out. Tillman was out, which is why we hit Jeudy so hard.
What's going to happen here? They're going to start Dorian Thompson-Robinson down the stretch.
And it's just going to kill everyone's fantasy value. Yeah. And they're Chubb's out for the year.
I actually hope that happens this week because the guy that I play in our playoffs has Jerry Jeudy.
Jeudy, okay.
Go ahead. Start Dorian Thompson-Robinson this week.
I imagine Njoku and Tillman have to be back soon. Chubb's out. I mean, they're going to throw if it's Winston like
Chubb
crazy.
Broke his foot.
I know. I feel bad for that guy, too.
Yeah.
But I don't know what to do with that team. Because even if Winston starts, is he going to finish the game?
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Right.
Well, and that's been
they're browning it up.
That's what you get. We need, we get a decent game out of
money.
Bijan Robinson. 119 points is respectable.
Yeah.
You couldn't
there were
start
some blow up guys, and we
you
didn't have any
couldn't
of them.
start everybody in the Bills
No, right,
Detroit
right.
game
But
because
I'm sure the Allen owners are pretty happy once again.
but you really had to pay for that.
True.
Like, yeah, it's nice to have that guy in your lineup, but we got 30 points out of Aaron Rodgers at $5,400.
Well, that's.
I mean, that
what
was
this is all about. That's the beauty of DFS.
7% ownership. We went Aaron Rodgers,
Mhm.
and we got 30 points.
And even like smart, to get
Yeah.
to really go cheap and not be at a disadvantage against other tight ends you're playing against.
And even like Judy was 10.5% ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where you really make your bones.
Yeah.
Like finding those nuggets. Yeah, we took the 0 with Amari Cooper.
Kind of makes up for it. Right?
12.3% ownership. But if we'd have gotten 12.4 points out of Judy and 12.4 points out of Cooper, would we feel differently about this? We'd have probably been disappointed a little bit.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, a couple things. I think Judy's only one of 4 receivers at 1,000 yards already. Like, I didn't see that coming no matter how you cut it.
Well, getting every beat, like 16 targets a game.
Yeah. I mean, the Tillman injury certainly has helped him over. But, like, I don't think I'm running and getting him next year in the second round of my redraft leagues or anything.
No, I'll let somebody else do that.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like yesterday was a very high-scoring fantasy day across leagues.
Yeah.
I was shocked when we were still in it.
I'll take it.
Yeah,
and again, we'll probably finish around. I mean, what's Bijan going to get against the Raiders tonight?
Something.
20.
Who knows?
20 is probably the floor, so we're going to have over 140 points.
I think he might be hanging out in the fourth quarter with a baseball cap on.
Well, but if that happens, he probably scored a
probably
couple of
did
times.
something.
Yeah. So we're in good shape there. Let's move on here and take a look at this week's leaderboard. To your point, here's the thing: all those points scored this weekend, there were only 2 300-yard passers.
Really?
You had Jared Goff at 494 with 5 touchdowns. 494. Threw the ball 59 times.
Yeah.
You had Josh Allen at 362 and 2 touchdowns. Now, obviously, you get the rushing.
Some
from
other
him,
stuff
too.
as well, but right, they're all one game.
Mac Jones had 294, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Nobody's starting Mac Jones.
No, that's Brian Thomas numbers.
Lamar had 290 and 5 touchdowns, but you expect that out of Lamar. He threw the ball 25 times.
No, he had more touchdown passes than he had incompletions.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts had 290 and 2 touchdowns. Also ran for 1. Rodgers had 289 and 3 touchdowns. So, again, that bang for the buck in terms of DFS. That's where we're at. Baker Mayfield had 288 and 4 touchdowns with an interception.
They just dominated him in the second half.
Yeah. Burrow, 271 and 3 touchdowns with 2 interceptions. It's actually kind of a down game for him.
That's kind of his floor at this point.
Yeah. He had a bad fumble and a couple of those interceptions weren't.
They weren't great. No.
Yeah.
Wasn't his best day.
Wasn't his best day. Jordan Love, we got 229 and 2 touchdowns.
Also wasn't Will Levis's best day.
No.
He's the new Jameis.
And then Jaden Daniels had 226 and 2 touchdowns. Ran the ball pretty effectively.
Yeah. I mean, did enough. I mean, Saints they made that interesting at the end, but
got the untimed or the extra seconds on the clock and all that fun stuff.
Daniels to McLaurin's a real thing, though.
But the quarterback position, I mean, from Jared Goff at 1 with 494 yards and 5 touchdowns to Jaden Daniels all the way down at 10 has 226 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, there's a massive gap there.
Yeah. I mean, Goff went lunatic, but
yeah. But even at that, there's a big gap there between Josh Allen at 362 and Jaden Daniels at 226.
Like, to your point, there was 2 guys had a lot of the production.
Yeah.
Through the air.
There were some touchdowns thrown in there, but the quarterback touchdowns, when they're like 2 of Lamar's touchdowns go to Rashad Bateman. Who's playing Rashad Bateman?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Right.
I mean, you got to really be scraping bottom of the barrel.
With no one on bye.
Right. The rushing, only 6 100-yard rushers this week. Rico Dowdell, 149.
It's kind of every week now.
Didn't score, 25 carries. Long run of 12. Had 149 yards with a long run of 12. Bucky Irving, 15 for 117. Didn't score.
Yeah, looks great, though.
James Conner, 16 for 110. 2 touchdowns.
Having a good year.
Yeah.
Really good year.
Kyron Williams, 29 for 108 in that Thursday night game.
Yeah.
They
just never throw to backs.
Jonathan Taylor had 22 for 107. Didn't score.
Well, he should have.
He
if he
should
doesn't
have.
drop the ball at the 1, which for some reason people are doing left and right now.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
And then James Cook had 14 for 105 and 2 scores.
Yeah, that's a great game. Good game.
Rounding out your top 10 was Chase Brown, 25 for 97 and a touchdown. Josh Jacobs had 26 for 94 and a touchdown. Jerome Ford had 7 for 84 and a touchdown. He had a 62-yarder.
I wonder if he gets a bump now.
Going to be the only game in town now
Yeah,
again.
I mean, I don't think it'll be Foreman or one of those guys.
They just don't know.
It's a hard offense to count on.
Yeah. And then Ramondre Stevenson, 13 for 69 and did not score.
Okay.
So, not
less production than I thought, I guess.
not a lot of carries there. The receivers, well, we had 11 of those that broke 100 yards. Devontae Adams, 9 for 198 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
71-yarder. Amon-Ra St. Brown, we talked about him, 14 for 193 and a touchdown.
He had a long one, too. Like 48-yarder or something like
66.
That. Was it 66?
Mike Evans, 9 for 159 and 2 touchdowns.
He's been great.
CeeDee Lamb, 9 for 116 and a touchdown.
It's pretty obvious that Cooper Rush can keep your guys fantasy relevant.
This is the one that was the most surprising. Ty Johnson, 5 for 114.
He's break free on one or something, or
He had a 33-yarder, no.
I guess he had a couple. He must have had a couple of 20 plus.
They're getting him kind of isolated on the linebackers and just go run.
Huh.
Sam Laporta, 7 for 111.
He's been more and more relevant. Started the season slow, but I would not have given. Hopefully, he didn't give up on him.
Yeah. A.J. Brown at 8 for 110 and a touchdown. Jalen Coker, 4 for 110 and a touchdown. He had an 83-yarder.
He had a long one, too.
Yeah.
But they like him a lot, and I think Leggett got hurt at the end of that game.
Devontae Smith at 11 for 109 and a touchdown. See, that's the thing about this game. A.J. Brown averaged 13.8 yards per catch. His long game was 21. Devontae Smith, 11 for 109. His long game was 22 yards.
Mm-hmm. Very similar.
Like, you didn't allow the big long
which I think
passes
was
in
a
that
huge
game.
part of the goal.
Yeah.
And I give Hurts and those guys credit for doing it consistently.
Yeah. So, there are adjustments you can make to that, again.
The thing is, they don't have a third receiver at all at this point.
At all.
Right.
It's all funneled through those two guys. Jerry Jeudy, 11 for 108, did not score. And then Brian Thomas, 10 for 105 and 2 touchdowns.
I know a lot of people kept him on their bench, worried about Mac Jones. I think he's a start no matter what type of guy.
Yeah, looking at some of the other guys, Chase had 9 for 94, didn't score. Puka Nacua, 7 for 97, didn't score. T. Higgins sighting this week, 5 for 88 and a touchdown after.
I think that was just a blip last week.
Yeah, I think
they
so,
throw
too.
A bunch.
Trey McBride, 9 for 87.
Of course, didn't score.
Didn't score.
Yeah.
Tyjae Spears, 6 for 87 and a touchdown.
Him and Pollard split, but he got all the receiving stuff, and that's all that mattered.
It looks like, you think they start Mason Rudolph this week?
Yes.
I do too.
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 10 for 83.
Every week.
Yeah. Didn't score. Jameer Gibbs had 5 for 83 and a touchdown. Malik Neighbors, 10 for 82 and a touchdown.
I mean, they're still going to feed him even with bad quarterbacks.
Bateman had 3 for 80 and 2 scores. That's why you're not starting that guy.
No.
You're just not. There's not enough volume there.
I did, just starting in the stat pack stuff I do. I mean, they use him as a deep threat, though. He's got a lot of long balls, more. And I never thought of that of him when he came out.
Yeah,
I did more an intermediate.
But
guy.
when you're running,
he gets single coverage, they send him deep, and Lamar's a good deep passer.
Yeah. Jalen McMillan, 5 for 75 and a touchdown.
Starting to come on a little bit.
Yeah.
Bucks are good.
Brenton Strange, 11 for 73.
Yeah, I picked him up in a dynasty league, and I probably would like to trade him now if the deadline hasn't gone. But, I mean, they're building for the future.
His long catch was 9 yards.
Mac Jones, though, is showing us that he can keep people.
Well, he does know how to throw to the tight ends because that's all they had in New England. Terry McLaurin had 7 for 73 and 2 touchdowns. Again, a lot of these guys we talked about it.
They were good values.
We just settled on the wrong guy with Amari Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
Calvin Austin, 5 for 65.
I don't think he's fantasy relevant, but he's been a success this year.
He's real world relevant.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 2 for 64.
It's all they really got.
Yeah.
A weird team.
Keon Coleman had 1 for 64.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been nice to get that out of. Justice Hill's a guy the Steelers are going to have to deal with this week. He had 5 for 61 and a touchdown.
I mean, he plays all the time.
Yeah.
He's kind of their Gainwell.
Chig showed up this week. Chig had 8 for 59.
Wow. I think that was all Rudolph. Just my hunch, because Rudolph was pretty efficient.
Yeah.
Levis was all over
Levis
the place.
was not efficient because that will never be a word that's used with Will Levis.
He's really been bad.
Really bad. But that's your top performers this week. Again, not a whole lot of new names on there. Some interesting names.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Coker is out there.
Yeah, I'd have some interest, but he's not going to catch an 80-yarder every year, every week.
The question is, are you going to be able to push that button on game day and say, yeah, let's start him? It's probably more of a DFS start.
Yeah, I don't know that there's many injuries there were. Are there these great waiver wire pickups? I know it's tomorrow's project, but it's, Montgomery direct replacement out there. Is there a Chubb direct replacement?
Again, this is the time of year, if your opponent has one of those guys, block.
Oh, yeah,
block.
Play defense as much as you can.
Yeah, because it's all about winning this week and then moving on to the next one. So, good luck. Hopefully you advanced in your playoff format. Matt and I both had buys this week in our league.
Because we're the best two teams.
That's right.
Because one of our league mates must not listen to the drive.
One of us finished first overall. The other one finished second. I'm not going to tell you who that was, but me. But I
think I have more points than you, though.
Who won our head-to-head matchup?
Well, we'll see until we meet again.
If you can get there. You get the red hot team.
I'm the red hot team.
You get the red hot team. You get the guy that has Josh Allen. You got to play Josh. That's the thing.
I'll coach that dude.
You play Josh Allen this week. I got to play Lamar.
Ooh.
I like my matchup better against Lamar this week.
I would like anyone better than Josh Allen. But they're both dangerous dudes.
Yeah. Neither one of us drafted quarterbacks early.
No, I got Jaden Daniels, though, and Goff sitting on the bench.
I got Jordan Love.
500.
Yeah, but
don't worry about that part.
Yeah. But anyways, good luck if you make it past that first round. That will do it for the fantasy football focus today. Let's get to a break. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I'll be back with more right after this. And welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And I don't want to say like I'm the great Kreshkin here or something, or Karnak or whatever, but Lamar Jackson goes out and just chews up the Giants this week.
Oh, yeah.
5 touchdown passes, just does whatever they want to do. And, of course, he jumps back in. Well, is Lamar the MVP or is Josh Allen the MVP? It's Josh Allen.
Oh, I think Allen's running away with it.
Yeah.
I mean, the last 2 weeks have done Allen wonderful things, even when a loss.
The Steelers have an opportunity not only to win a division on Sunday, but kind of end any talk of a Lamar Jackson MVP if they go out and do what they've done consistently against Lamar Jackson. Just to remind everybody, earlier this season, what Lamar did against the Steelers.
Yeah.
16 of 33 for 207 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception.
Mm-hmm.
They only sacked him twice, which is actually, if you look at it, that's the lowest amount of sacks that he's had on him in his game against the Steelers that he started. Okay. It's been 5, 4, 7, 4, and 2. They averaged getting to him 3.1 times, and that's including a game where he only threw 1 pass because he was the backup quarterback at the time. They just used him as a so really it's more like 4 sacks per game with him
over
as a
career.
Yeah. In 5 starts, it's 22 sacks in 5 starts that he's 1-4.
Yeah, there's obviously something to that. I mean, I think the familiarity, the pass rush plan that I can't harp on enough, I think is really, really important. And I know that this past game was recent, but he's way better from the pocket than he's ever been. And
you would think that would translate, and it just hasn't.
It didn't. Even I know he won the MVP last year, but he's a much better passer this year than he was last year. And I still think you take the same approach on him. I mean,
he shows you he can beat it.
Why would you differ? Of course. But I think he's more equipped to beat it than ever because he throws really well and he's got good weapons. But I don't know if it's in his head. Is it a fluke? Is it, what the deal is? Because he's a tremendous football player that should be right in the MVP race. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Allen's better this year in terms of MVP potential to me, but he'd be number 2.
Yeah. Mike Tomlin was asked about Lamar has struggled against you guys. What have you done to make Lamar struggle? Like, First of all, like he's going to say, well, here's what we've done.
But he's got this kryptonite, and I'm going to tell the whole world about it, right?
The Ravens know what he's done.
Yeah.
And he said they would be better equipped to answer that question than I am.
Okay.
But there are obviously some things that they have done schematically
Yes.
that have bothered Lamar Jackson.
Yes.
And two of those things might be T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward.
I would say I think Hayward has a lot to do with
Yeah.
it in terms of just finding lanes, making him, pat the football a second longer than he wants to, things like that. I mean, I think it's more the D-line and coverages than coverages. You know, not that they don't have an idea of what he's looking at and all those things too. But I do think it's definitely a Tomlin strength that doesn't get talked about enough, is the more he plays against you, the less advantage you have. You know what I mean? Like, I know they lost the Eagles, but if they played them 10 times, I think it can progressively get better. You know what I mean? I think there's something to be said for that. And, knowing the division has always been a strength of this organization for decades.
The most yards that Lamar Jackson has thrown for against the Steelers is 253 yards.
Okay.
His best rating in a game in which he has started and finished is that game, 80.1. If you look at his passer ratings in the other starts, 54.9, 65.8, 80.1, 65.2, and 66.1.
Mm-hmm.
So his career passer rating against the Steelers is 66.7.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, this is a guy who is leading the league in passer. He's almost twice that this year.
Right. I would say that would be a terrible game for him nowadays. Just the average of all.
Well, and it was a terrible game for him.
And it was a terrible game for him, right? I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying it's not sustainable, because clearly it is, and they are really well equipped to play against him. And frankly, going and getting Patrick Queen and Elliott, not because they're former Ravens, but because they handle the middle of the field and they run well and they understand how to get him on the ground, has a lot of value as well. I mean, teams in the division do things to deal with the Steelers, and the Steelers are doing things to deal with Lamar. He's scary. I mean, the hard knocks thing. Well, Orlando Brown's there because Highsmith's destroying the left tackle. Well, yeah. I don't want to do that happen twice a year. I hope it keeps up, but part of me thinks at some point he's gonna have a good game against right.
you.
Like, he's not going to go a decade without ever having a good game against the Steelers. I mean, there's no chance that's going to happen.
But he's not a good game for him against the Steelers.
I mean, it's not like the Giants game.
It's not going to be 5 touchdowns and no interceptions or anything like that.
4 incompletions or something like that, right? I mean, it's not going to be a walk in the park. I don't know what to make of it. Yeah, I really don't.
It's one of the more interesting
it is
situations that I can think of in pro sports today.
Yeah.
Regardless of, this team, for whatever reason, just has this guy's number.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, and I should know the conversation better. Maybe you can remember it, but I just did a hit with Mark Madden, and I was walking out of the office with him, and we were just talking about the upcoming thing off the air. And he said his mom was a huge tennis fan. When growing up, they'd always watch McEnroe and Borg and all those guys. And I forget who the other great player was that was really good friends with McEnroe, but McEnroe beat him like 16 times in a row. And he was comparing it to the Steelers and Lamar. And I guess in match number 17, this guy finally beats McEnroe. And they interview him, and he's like, no one beats me 17 times in a row. It just totally makes a joke out of it. It cracked me up, but I don't think it's going to get to that degree, but there's certainly a styles make fight thing in sports where I got your number, but this guy's got my number, or whatever it is, and right now they have him figured out.
Yeah, he has 5 touchdown passes and 8 interceptions against the Steelers. He has,
if you minus those off his career totals, it's insanely different.
Yeah.
Right.
He also has 8 interceptions against the Browns, who he's 7-5 in his career against the Browns as a starter.
I didn't know that.
But he started 12 games against them. He's only started 6 against the Steelers.
Mm-hmm. There is a small sample size thing here, but they're all bad.
Against the Bengals, he's thrown 22 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions.
And I always think of those games being first one to 30 too. I definitely think Harbaugh, I said this a couple weeks ago, prepares for the Steelers way different than he does the Bengals.
Yeah.
And I think some of it's I know that you know that I know that you know, the type of thing where if we get to 20 against the Steelers, we're going to win. We got to get to 40 against the Bengals to win. Just a totally different mindset of maybe we should fake a punt here or something like that we don't usually do in the Cincy game, or we got to play it really close to the vest against the Steelers. I don't know.
The thing is,
it's intriguing though.
It really is interesting to me. Now the Browns have sacked him more. He's been sacked 27 times on 264 pass attempts. The Steelers have gotten to him 22 times on 165 pass attempts.
He's thrown the ball a lot more against him, right?
So and by far those are by far the most that any team has gotten to him. The Chiefs have gotten to him on 162 pass attempts, so it's very similar to the Steelers. Steelers 165.
Yeah.
11 times.
Okay.
It's half as much as the Steelers have. So they get to him.
Yeah.
And maybe he just sees the rush more against the Steelers because they do get to him.
Maybe there's a tendency that Tomlin will never tell us until he's on his deathbed type of thing, that he always looks left and then he goes right to Hayward or whatever it is. I mean, there must be
and we just
something.
take Andrew. We take the Wooby away. We take Andrews away, and so that's not there. And then,
yeah. But there's been a couple different coordinators for them. I mean, it's not just Tomlin against same OC, but maybe there's just obvious things like we have a really good feel for who their first read player is, in down and distance.
But it's been different coordinators.
It's been different coordinators, right? I mean, if we could take Andrews away as a first read all the time, there's a pretty high percentage that he's going to have to pat the ball and then go outside. I'm making stuff up. I'm just trying to. You'd have to study the tape and play against them like the Steelers have year after year after year.
It's really strange.
It is.
Now I will say so.
But it's wonderful. I mean, it's impressive, right?
If you look at what Baltimore has done. Basically, since that game against the Bengals, the Steelers game being part of that, they gave up 470 yards in that game against the Bengals. Mm-hmm. They brought in Dean Pease as a defensive senior assistant or whatever.
He used to be on staff way back when.
Yeah, he was their defensive coordinator. He's kind of retired. Now they bring him back. So they give up 303 yards to the Steelers, 285 to the Chargers, 252 to the Eagles in that game. Now the Eagles were winning handily, and they're more than happy at that point.
Yeah, run.
That one ended up 24-19. It wasn't really that close. And they gave up 236 to the Giants on Sunday. So the numbers have kind of switched a little bit for them since they brought Pease back, and they're playing. I didn't
realize they did that at that point.
Better defensively than they had been.
Yeah, I think they're blowing fewer coverages too. That was a big problem, was just the communication on the back end.
We've also put Hamilton basically. You're now the free safety.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can't keep giving up long pass after long pass.
I mean, in a way, he's their Minka. Like last year, I wrote an article about how Minka is just putting out fires left and right. If something's going wrong, we can't stop tight ends. Minka, that's your job. We need a cover 2 safety. Minka, that's your job. We got to play someone near the box. That's your job. So now that's Hamilton. That's the beauty of having a versatile star safety like that. I also think the Oways of the world are getting better too. They're getting a little bit better pass rush. I'm interested to study them. It's only day one. I'm still kind of recovering, but what's changed over the last couple of weeks? But boy, going into the last game was a lot of blown coverages. To your point, Marcus Williams, the free safety,
he's benched.
He looks shot.
Eddie Jackson benched.
Yeah,
they've got some of those guys out of there
who's might not be in the league next year, that have had good careers. That probably hit the wall before they expected them to.
And that's always been something that the Ravens have done over the years. They always have these 10-year veteran guys on the back end of the Weddles, the Woodses.
I was going to say Weddle guys like that too, right?
And it just didn't work out this year.
No, it didn't. And I don't know that Simpson was a 1-for-1 for Queen either. I definitely was not. To be honest, he's still learning. He bites on play action and runs the wrong way sometimes and stuff.
But you look at their offense, and it hasn't been as explosive over that same period. So I think they've kind of – yesterday it was.
Yeah,
but you played a really bad Giants team.
And Henry slowed down a little bit lately, too.
Really slowed down.
Yeah.
But if you look at their point output, 16 against the Steelers. They scored 30 against the Chargers, 19 against the Eagles, and 35 yesterday. So it's not the 35, 41, 30, 41 that they were, they scored 41 3 times this year.
Leading into Steelers-Ravens Part 1, I was pretty confident that was the best offense in the league. It was like them and the Lions. Like you can fight back and forth.
Now I don't think it's close.
I don't either. I mean, it's still really good, and they're dangerous, and lighting up the Giants doesn't change my opinion at all. I mean, everyone could have seen that coming. They are good, but I don't think they run the ball as much or as well. I think they can get Henry slowed down a little bit more behind the line of scrimmage. They're intriguing. I'm real excited to dig into them throughout.
I still think the offensive line is a bit of an issue.
I think it's okay, not great.
Yeah.
That's
any line that includes Filele.
Yeah. I think guard problems.
Yeah, Macari at the other, like the two guards, Filele and Macari.
They're not great. Voorhees wasn't great.
Like Hayward against Macari is.
No, that's gonna be a big. And anyone against Filele should be all right.
Yeah.
I also think the right tackle is gonna be a problem.
Yeah,
without question.
And maybe that's the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you play the Steelers, you have to chip T.J. Watt. You have to constantly do it.
I wonder if it's a right tackle, left guard problem.
Maybe.
I mean, it might be as simple.
As simple as that.
It might be as simple as that. That you're not strong enough at right tackle and left guard to deal with those.
Consistently deal with those guys.
Yeah, it might be that simple. Because they haven't been great. Morgan Moses was more of a run blocker too, and they shipped him out for nothing. I'm just trying to think other guys in the past. Yeah, maybe that's part of it.
Yeah,
it's definitely part of it.
Oh, there's no doubt it's part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of what gives the Steelers an opportunity to win every week. The other interesting thing about this one is that the Steelers didn't have Alex Highsmith the last time, and
that's definitely a boost.
Yeah, I mean,
as impressive as Herbig is, Highsmith's a different breed. I mean, he's more of he's 20 pounds heavier or whatever it is. He plays like
much
an every
more.
down guy.
He really sets the edge well.
Yeah, and I really like Herbig, but the last 2 weeks he's been kind of quiet by his standards too. He's not going to have the highest pass rush win rate in the league. The kind of stuff he was doing. So having him as a part-time player, I think, goes a long way. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a heck of a matchup.
It really is, and I wonder for this one. We've seen that when Highsmith was a rookie, for example, and it was Watt and Dupree.
Yeah.
When they played the Ravens, they used the three of them at the same time a lot.
Yeah. That's a lot when they were experiment with that.
Yeah.
I would have no problem with it. I mean, they have flirted with it here and there.
A little bit.
One of the issues, though, is you got to pull another good player off that has a defined position.
Yeah.
Does that mean Benton's on the sideline or Queen or one of your other off-the-ball linebackers that are doing well on their own?
Yeah. I don't have a problem taking a defensive lineman off the field necessarily as long as Henry's not in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And
if it's Henry following Ricard, that's a problem. Right.
That's the problem that the Ravens offense has with Henry. And it's no knock on Henry.
He's a certain type of back. To me, that's why he's not
never out there on third down.
Right.
And so, if you get ahead where they get into a hurry up or a 2-minute situation, he's just not out there.
He's phenomenal. He's got a bunch of milestones that he's going to set against the Steelers. Like he's about to hit his 1,500 for the third time in his career, fourth time in his career. He's like one carry away from passing John Riggins for 7th all time, or he's about to hit 11,000 yards. So he's going to set a bunch of milestones this weekend. And I think he's phenomenal. But it also didn't shock me as much as people in hindsight. How could you let him go to the Ravens when he was a free agent? Because you have to restructure everything for him. Yeah. And he's not young, and you might only get him for a year. Now, of course, Dallas probably looks at it like, yeah, we should have signed Henry. But he's a certain type of player. You could take Barkley and throw him in any offense. And it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
McCaffrey, throw him in any offense. You got to dedicate yourself to being a Henry offense. And 9 out of 10 times it's great. But throwing downs are an issue. And he needs – Greg Cosell calls him a track runner, like he's on a train track. Like you get him on that track and look out. But it's not easy to open the lane for the track,
Yeah. So interesting. Let's get to another break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. And, of course, you can hear The Drive every Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. right here on these very airwaves, or you can download the Steelers mobile app and get it downloaded directly to your phone along with all the other great content on there. And, you can also watch us on the YouTube channel where they also have a lot of great content. So go ahead and do that. And enjoy. But we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, you brought up, while we're on the subject of the Ravens, the Derrick Henry situation here. Last 2 weeks, 18 for 84, 13 for 46.
Hasn't gotten free.
No, I'm sorry, that was the beginning of the year. Actually, It's been 14 for 67, 19 for 82. Remember, the Steelers held him to 65 on 13 carries.
Mm-hmm.
So four of his last 5 games, 68, 65. He had 140 against the Chargers.
Yeah.
82 and 67.
He hasn't been on SportsCenter ripping off long runs, stiff-arming guys, 30 yards downfield, running away from everybody. I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there, but he's not young, and he's taking a beating, and I wonder if he's as spry. Did have a bye 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They're doing other things on offense, too. I mean, they haven't – sounds crazy, but they haven't fully bought into the Derrick Henry experience either. They're kind of teetering that line, and that's worked well, and they haven't needed him every time, but I think he's easier to stop than a guy like Barkley.
He's got 5 games this season where he's gotten 20 carries. The Ravens are 5-0 in those games.
Are they?
So they're 3-5 when they don't get Derrick Henry 20 carries. That includes yesterday's blowout of the Giants.
They rested a lot of guys though. Like
I get it, but so
late in the game,
you're 2-5 in games that matter.
Yeah,
in games in which you weren't destroying the opponent when you don't get him that many carries.
And I bet that's true when he was a Titan too. Again, he's a certain type of back. You got to dedicate yourself to being a Derrick Henry type offense. And it's easier said than done. And I kind of made fun of Harbaugh early in the season. It was like week 3 or 4, and they asked him, why aren't you featuring Henry more? And he said something like, well, we're going to spread things around. We're not featuring anyone. I'm like, well, then you got the wrong guy.
Yeah, why did you do that then?
Not that it hasn't worked out for him. He's he's one of the best additions in the offseason, right behind Barkley in the running back world. But it's just I'm not explaining as well as I wish I was, but you got to jump in the deep end on the Derrick Henry experience, and that takes away from other things.
Yeah.
So I think he's a phenomenal football player, but I don't think he's a perfect football player, Yeah,
he hasn't scored a touchdown now.
It's been a while.
In 3 games.
Yeah.
Since he scored against the Steelers.
And these are all standards of great backs. These aren't compared
Absolutely.
to, Joe Blow.
He had that 65 yards against the Steelers. Remember, he had a 31-yard carry in there.
And then I thought he had one big, decent chunk run.
So, I mean, again, much like they did with Barkley yesterday, you take that 22-yard run away from Barkley. On his other carries, he averaged 2.4 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Like, you did a really good job there. You did a good job against Henry. He didn't allow Henry to take the game over. And I think the Ravens, unlike some other teams out there, can be dissuaded from using their guy.
That's kind of what I was thinking, too, is like where there are teams out there going to pound the rock, 3 and out, punt, okay, but we know the dam's going to break. And the Steelers have some of those qualities on offense,
and that's been Henry's thing over the course of his career. Like, he's a closer.
He's a closer.
Yeah.
And lands a bunch of body blows in the first half, and then one missed tackle, and because then he's got that rare speed, too. It's interesting.
Like, I just think that they've been, if we were doing Ravens Nation Radio, I'm like, why aren't we giving the ball to Derrick Henry more? Like, this
Giants game aside,
this is crazy. Yeah, I get it. Last week
there was no wrong answer in that game.
But he's got 254 rushing attempts. He's at 5.8 yards of carry. Like,
I mean, it's still an unbelievable weapon that you just have to keep feeding the weapon.
Like,
now Lamar's been running a little bit more lately too. I guess his mom told him to or whatever, But he's pretty good at that too. They almost. That's a dumb thing to say. I would say they almost have too many good options. Well, why don't we get Andrews the ball more? Even yesterday, I mean, they're tearing up the Giants, but why didn't Zay Flowers get more action? You got a lot of good things going on here. If you're going to connect a couple deep balls to Bateman, and you're not going to use Henry a ton, I mean, Andrews didn't light it up. It's just they got a lot of options.
Yeah, they were going to win that game yesterday. I mean,
that game's almost a throwaway for where the Giants are at right now.
I mean, my goodness, you're playing against.
I firmly believe the Giants don't want to win.
Right.
I mean, I think that's on purpose.
Yeah.
At this stage.
Yeah.
Right.
At this point, I mean,
they want to pick first or second in the draft.
they were playing with Tommy DeVito and Tim Boyle at quarterback.
Yeah, DeVito got hurt, and Locke's not even the 2. He was the emergency guy.
Right.
Boyle's the guy off the bench.
So, I mean, I don't even know defensively what you take out of that game from the Ravens defense.
Not much. It's like as easy a team to play against as there in the league right now.
And, I don't know.
It was over at halftime.
They just seem like a team that, like, okay, you're going to take I can't get past you. You're going to put Justice Hill out there instead of Derrick Henry in certain situations. Well, okay.
Yeah. It's kind of like Gainwell and Barkley, though. I mean, like, Hills and Gainwell, to me, are the same level third down back, but Barkley's a much better receiver.
I think Gainwell's better.
What's that?
I think Gainwell's better.
Do you? I kind of think they're about the same. And they're both spot duty guys that are effective on a per-touch basis. But I think Barkley's a much better receiver than Henry. I'm shocked he doesn't catch more balls, to be honest with you. I'm not shocked Henry doesn't catch more balls. He catches the ball like it's a beach ball.
Yeah. So just interesting. We'll continue to break down this this roster.
He's still a massive challenge, and the combination of him and Lamar is a massive challenge.
Yeah.
But I like Cam Hayward's chances of dealing with it.
Yeah, I do too. And again, that offensive line.
They got to tackle better, though. And
they do have to tackle better.
Tackle in space was a problem yesterday.
Yeah, and I thought some of it was a little bit of over-aggressiveness at times.
I thought so, too. Overrunning things, not breaking down. I thought some of the angles were a little too aggressive.
Yeah.
But that needs corrected. I mean, to me, that's one of your big on-tape coaching points of the week, is in space in particular, breaking down, making the play. You don't have to blow them up and run through them, get them on the ground.
Yeah. And that's something that,
especially on the third downs,
I expect them to be better at. They've been good at it all season.
I think they've been the best tackling team in the league.
Yeah. That was the anomaly yesterday.
Yeah. And it wasn't like Barkley was making, some of his crazy ones, jumping over people backwards and stuff. I mean,
they did a good job tackling him.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the hardest guy to tackle out there was just better than all of you.
Yeah.
It was a bad tackling day.
Yeah. It's just a bad day at the office all around. But, Matt, that's going to do it for the show today.
All right. We're in the middle of a crazy stretch of the season. It's kind of fun, though.
Yeah, well, kind of fun for you. I haven't even been home yet since
haven't you?
Because I got back from Philadelphia. Like, I left my house Saturday morning and haven't been home since.
Oh, wow. I have to stop back.
Nope. So
there you have it.
Yeah, I'll have some. I already called my wife. What's for dinner? Because I want to eat a nice home cooked meal.
Sit at your table.
Yeah. And just sit back and relax and watch the 2 Monday night games tonight.
Yeah, how about that?
So
they're okay. They're entertaining.
One should be, anyways.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be great.
Yeah,
that's all right.
That's all right.
I like the Vikes.
Yeah. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's show. So for my partner, Matt Williamson, for Justin Miller here on site, running the Justin Miller hotline and the soundboard here, and for Tyler Vittmeyer, making sure our video makes it out there onto YouTube, I am Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.